with your thesis?
The most important thing is that I have all the
Information.
sources that I will use in my lead review.
And have you had a chance to upload any information?
Just like 1 or 2 sites, quotes.
Do you have any questions about how you want to organize your literature review? Because I'm focusing on aligning the thesis statement with the research questions and making sure that all the topics and subtopics that fall in your literature review are directly linked to your thesis statement. So what are you thinking, or do you have any questions about how you want to organize your literature review?
Well, I divided in topics as you told me.
So is this your thesis statement here?
It is not completed because you tell me that it is better to complete the lead review first and then in base. No,
the first thing, what I'm telling everybody is, first thing, complete the research questions and the thesis statement first. Now you don't have to write the entire introduction, but I'm asking everyone to go ahead and write the thesis statement first and the research questions, and then when you finish, if you feel you need to modify your literature, your thesis statement, that's fine, but it's good to have, you need to have that, so this makes, you can kind of see what direction you're taking your literature review. And it also helps me see how you're organizing your thoughts here. If those students do not comprehend. So here you can say Mexican EFL students do not comprehend what they read. So English teachers can use these strategies to, well, I don't know what you're referring to. I mean, when you say some alternatives, then I'm thinking, well, what alternatives? Are you going to talk about alternatives? Well, the alternatives are these, no?
Yes.
So
the strategies?
Yeah, so you can just say, so English teachers can apply these strategies to assist or to help students practice their reading comprehension.
Okay.
Yeah. And then your...
in fact, I changed it. I modified some aspects from the last session, tutor session.
All right, so let's say that... Okay, so, but are you still thinking about talking about these three?
Yes.
All right, so if you have it listed like this, then your sections will be 1, metacognitive strategies, 2, monitoring strategies, 3, think aloud strategies, but in this order.
Yeah.
So instead of think aloud strategy here, this would be metacognitive.
Okay.
And then you would have monitoring strategy, and then think aloud at the end.
At the end.
Yeah. Now, if you want to change the order, then you need to change the order in your thesis statement. But this looks to me like a pretty good order because you're going from like the metacognitive down to a very more specific think aloud strategy, more practical.
Yeah, in fact, think aloud use metacognitive strategy.
I'm sorry, can you say that?
Think aloud strategy uses as a reference metacognitive.
So is think aloud a strategy or a technique?
It's strategy.
All right. So does think aloud also use monitoring?
No. I don't know.
All right. Hopefully it will, because that way you can tie in think aloud strategy and link it. Right. Everything should be related. So hopefully think aloud strategy you can discuss a little bit about how maybe there's also a monitoring strategy in there, but preferably because that's fine. When you talk about think aloud strategy, talk about what it is, how it's applied, and the relationship to the others. When you talk about monitoring, maybe you can relate it to metacognitive, compare and contrast, or there's some similarities there, or how is it related? Is there a cause and effect some way, or is there a reciprocal process, or I don't know?
The articles that I found said that the metacognitive strategy had a relation with monitoring, or vice versa, or using simple outs has a relationship with the other.
Okay, so just make sure you mention that in some way. You link those. Okay. But I would, whatever order you follow here should be the order that you have here. Make sure you change all the bold here. Should be regular text.
Yeah, I did it intentionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you organize each of these three sections, metacognitive, monitoring, and think aloud. Now, take each of those sections and ask yourself, how am I going to form an argument? What are the main ideas or the topic sentences that will build an argument to support that idea? So what I would do is, after you set up these headings, these level 2 headings, I would write out each topic sentence. Topic sentence, topic sentence, topic sentence. And then look at how you're organizing your ideas, those paragraphs. Later there'll be paragraphs. And then make sure, and then you might want to change the order, right? But change the order first before you start developing the paragraphs. And then once you're okay with the order, then to start developing each paragraph. Now, if you already have some paragraphs, what I would do is move things down, add those topic sentences first, and then go and look at your paragraphs and move them wherever they need to be, to make sure that there is a logical order in the way in which you're presenting your paragraphs. The hardest thing in a body paragraph, which is what we're talking about, is the main idea. Right? We talked about, I think in applied linguistics, the meal plan, making sure that we have those 4 types of sentences: main idea, which comes first; evidence, which are citations; analyze; and link. And that each paragraph has one of those 4 types of sentences. And so just make sure, that you try to adhere to that, and make sure that your paragraphs are in order.
It's like outline information.
Kind of like an outline. Yeah, I mean, you're essentially building an outline, but you don't have to have Roman numerals or anything like that. But it just gives you a skeleton type of view to say, okay, these are my topics. And whenever you're developing a paragraph, it helps you to realize and orient yourself. What have I already done, and where am I going? Right? And, all right, I've talked about these 2 items. Now I need to talk about this, and then everything looks, looks coherent, basically. Everything that we're talking about here relates to coherence, or coherency. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. Right? I mean, you work however you want to work. This is one suggestion, but at the end of the day, things need to be in order. And if you want to do a mind map and you're more visual, fine, do a mind map, but do something that helps you organize your thoughts, because writing is not just going from one sentence to the next. I mean, it really takes a deliberate planning, so that you know where you want it to go. If you don't do that, Diego, you'll be writing things and they'll go way over here, way off topic, and they come back, and you'll be kind of the ideas will be scattered, right? So do what works for you, but the idea being that everything is logical, that this paragraph comes before this for a reason. That you can say, I'm talking about this before this because of this, because either I want to start the more general to the specific, the least important to the most important, the theoretical to the practical, the abstract to the concrete, whatever. The chronological, this came first, and this came last, and everything else has a chronological order or historical order. I mean, and there's many ways to do it. It just depends on what you want to talk about. But there should be a logical reasoning, right? And it should be clear for you. If I ask you, when you finish next Friday, why did you put this paragraph before this? You should be able to provide an answer. That's the idea. Yeah. And it helps to think about that first. It's not an afterthought. It's not like you write everything. Oh, okay, now I'm going to check to see if it's coherent. No, well, you can do that, but you're probably going to waste more time. And it may feel like you're taking a lot of time thinking about all this, but trust me, you save time at the end. Because if I look at it and it's all out of whack, and I'll be making comments, and it'll take. Sometimes it's harder. For me personally, it's much harder to go back after you've written something that is in your mind and you feel that you have completed, and then you go back and you got to make all these changes. It's tough. It's hard. It's difficult.
Yes.
So really take some time and do whatever works for you as a writer. Mind map, outline, or just doing what I'm mentioning here. Just use the headings and topic sentences, which is a kind of an outline. And look at the skeleton and say, okay, is this logical? Right? And if you're not sure, then that's when you ask questions. You send me an email. This is my format. What do you think? Or I'm not sure if this should go before this. Or what do you think about this order? And then I make comments and see if that is logical and if that works for you. And then you say, okay, that makes sense. And now you start writing. When it makes sense to you, writing is much easier. The sense of like the order in which you're presenting your ideas. If that is understandable and you agree to that, then it's easier to write sometimes. So, any other questions or things we need to look at or address here?
I don't have a lot of information already.
So, my recommendation would be, start off, either with an outline or, make sure that the organization is right. If you want me to look at something before our next tutoring session, because we have until the 28th of February to complete our literature review, send me an email and I'll look at it, before our next tutoring session. Okay?
If I finish the next Monday, for example, I can tell you.
Whenever you feel like. Just make sure you're using the same fonts. It looks like you're copying, pasting certain text over, and you're changing the fonts. We want to use Times New Roman font size 12 like you have here. But here you change the fonts to this.
Yeah.
So just be careful. Yeah, with that.
I was thinking about APA, and what can I do if I take out a quote from a journal, and that idea was from a different author?
Yeah, you will want to do.
It's like in this one. The color strategy sets the basis. Well, in fact, I paraphrase that.
Okay, so
my question is if I need to look for the original author.
Well, I would always recommend that you try to find the original author. But if you can't, you can use what I'm about to suggest right now. In this case, you can use this author here and move this up here and say, according to these guys, 1984, blah 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 blah, and then you state as cited in 2007.
So
I see.
It is not enough if I write that information there. I mean, do I need to have the original one?
No.
No. Because
as long as you in your references, you're just going to include this. Because in this book, right, or was this a book?
No, it's journal.
So in this journal, you found this information, right? So you just include this journal in your references at the end.
Oh, okay.
You do not include this.
And what happens if I use a lot of this kind of...
Don't do that.
No?
You can use it, but use it very sparingly, maybe once or twice. Don't use it too much, because ideally we want to find the primary research So just try not to overdo it.
Okay.
And try your best to find this. If you can find this, the original work, better. It's better. But just use this sparingly, this as cited in. Because this is kind of like secondary information. It's not like primary research. We want to find this would be, I'm assuming, primary research if it's a study that they did. This is primary research. Now what you're citing is secondary. It's like a textbook almost. Actually, it's even tertiary.
Even if I paraphrase the books, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you
The
paraphrase
sentence.
or direct quote.
No.
It's a primary research article are articles that come directly from the research evidence. And if somebody, books, textbooks, they're referencing, right? That's not primary research, right? They're just referencing primary research. But it's not as good as you as a researcher. You need to find primary research. You need to go right to the source.
Okay. What else? Do you think that thesis is correct?
Yeah, I think we can work with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we need to change it later, we can change it. But I think it's clear to me what you want to address. Yeah. So, and your research questions?
Do I have to mention the strategies in the first one? How do teachers use?
Well, I probably let's take a look at this. Okay, so here we want to make sure that our thesis statement aligns with our research questions. Our thesis statement answers our research questions. So here we have, how do teachers use reading strategies to promote reading comprehension in EFL classes?
Do you know?
So I would mention these three. Since these are the three main sections of your literature review, you might ask, how do teachers use metacognitive and monitoring strategies let's see, what do teachers? So how do teachers use metacognitive, monitoring, and think aloud strategies to promote reading comprehension? That could be one question. Another, why do teachers...
Wait, I forgot to write it.
Why do teachers use metacognitive, monitoring, and think aloud strategies? I would say, why do teachers use metacognitive, monitoring, and think aloud strategies? Why do they do these to promote reading comprehension in EFL students? So yeah, just like you did here, I would mention the three strategies within the research question. And then that would be what you later will investigate. trying to find an answer, and then you'll compare your answer to what the experts say. And in your whole literature review, you're looking for ways to how do teachers use metacognitive strategies, and how do they?
What happens if the results of a journal of an strategy, that in this case is thinking aloud strategy, what happened if the result was not positive?
In your result?
No, in other one result.
Well, okay, you should include. Here's the thing: your thesis statement is an argument. It's a position. It's you saying, there's a reason why I think teachers ought to use these strategies. In a word, it's your opinion. So there should be a reason for you to say, I think there's a good reason to use think aloud strategies. So hopefully you have more authors that support the use of think aloud strategies. But in each one of these, even though you're saying this is good, these 3 strategies are all good, try your best to also include a counter argument. That is, some authors that say, well, there's a downside of using metacognitive. Monitoring strategy doesn't always work because of this, or think aloud strategy sometimes is not the best option. But that you're forming an argument. So think of this as like a big argument essay. And so you have your argument, counter argument, and follow-up. So metacognitive strategies are really good, but not always, because these happen. Sometimes they're not really suitable. But at the end of the day, they're still the best option. That's the kind of formula. That's the
But
the
you're
flow.
in the middle, right? Me as
No.
I'm in the middle.
This is an argument. You are promoting, at the end of the day, you're saying that metacognitive strategies are still a preferred way, or you're still promoting it as a good strategy for reading comprehension.
Do you have to choose a position?
You are presenting an argument in this fashion. You're pro, the counter argument, and a follow-up. This is a very common formula or pattern to follow for any argumentative essay or thesis in this case. So it's kind of like, in your argument, just try to provide both sides. And you're not going to be so neutral that you're saying, well, it's up to the reader. You're still saying, without saying in the words, I think, or this is the best, or this is the best. No. You're just stating the authors, you're stating claims. So even, each of your body paragraphs are going to have a topic sentence. Each of those topic sentences is a claim, it's an idea, it's a position, but it's more narrow in scope. But it supports this bigger argument, in this case, that these 3 strategies are what you are proposing. This is your position. You're saying, use these 3 strategies to help with reading comprehension, or at least that's your argument. Now you could be wrong, but this is your argument. You have support from outside sources to give credence to your support.
At the end of the day, it doesn't work. Nothing happens, right?
Yeah. When you do your research and you determine in your own context whether these are good or not, that's fine. It makes no difference. If and what you're doing here is, in fact, you're not even proposing that one is technically better. You're just supporting the idea, because when you do your research, you're not gonna be determining it's not a quantitative research, so you're not going to be saying, well, I was right or I was wrong. It's more like, what do teachers feel? How do they feel? And maybe all the teachers feel that these strategies are no good. They don't work. Okay, that's fine, no problem. You compare that to what the experts say, right? And then you make your own conclusion at the very end. Your final discussion is going to be saying, look, all these experts say this, but the teachers I said, they say this. And then what does that mean? ¿Qué significa eso? That's when you discuss it. That's in the discussion section of and the most important. You have to make sense of this, right? That's when you talk about, okay, maybe these teachers missed something, or maybe they're right and these experts are wrong, but you have to justify your own answer.
In this case, I will choose my context, my personal context in that situation.
Your research, not your personal context as a teacher,
No?
but as a researcher only. It's very important. You will never talk about your own personal experience in this thesis, never. Because it's not an action research. You are researching someone else, and you are the researcher. You're not a teacher now. You're a researcher, and you are only talking about what you collected based on, in this case, someone else, another teacher, and comparing your results with those of the experts. What did the experts say? And they could coincide, or they could be different. It doesn't matter, but you have to discuss that. ¿Qué implica eso? What's this mean? And that's the heart of this whole exercise, the discussion. This is where you can demonstrate your knowledge and say, the experts say this, I observed this, and this is what it means. That's what the synodalities, the examining committees are looking for. They want to be able to hear you say, what does it mean? And you want to be prepared for that so that they don't really have much to ask. I mean, the best thing to do is finish your presentation, and they really don't have hardly any questions because you've already answered them. But they're going to ask you questions like, okay, so how do teachers, why do teachers use these strategies? And because you mentioned that they use them, why do they use them? I mean, they're going to be asking you questions from your research questions. They may ask you word for word the research question that you have here. And you need to be prepared to first explain it in the presentation, but also elaborate if they need further clarification. But right now we're talking about the literature review, and you want to be focusing on what the other people say, but you are forming an argument. And in a way, you're forming your own opinion. But you're not saying, I think, I feel this, teachers should do this. No. It's all about what the experts say. The main idea, the topic sentence of every paragraph is your own original idea. Now support it with experts, with citations. Then discuss it, comment on it, analyze it, compare and contrast those results. Describe the relationship between that evidence with the main idea of the paragraph. And then link it to the next idea and move from idea to idea in this way.
Most of the literature review have to come from the other authors or from
Okay, every sentence that you write, think of it as being either one of two things. One, either original idea, your own idea, or number two, an idea that's not your original idea, and that's not common knowledge, that will be considered coming from an expert where you'll need a citation. So all original ideas, you do not need a citation. Ideas that come from the outside worlds that are not your original idea, that is not common knowledge, should include a citation. Now, we've talked about in the past the acronym, the MEAL plan, MEAL, and an acronym that we use to develop our body paragraphs. So talking about that, we know that each paragraph, the first sentence is the main idea or the topic sentence, right? That should be an original idea. So you state a claim. When I say original idea, I mean a claim, an idea. And try your best to avoid there are sentences and verbs to be in the topic sentence. Try to use a dynamic verb and a strong subject with no pronouns, right? Don't use a pronoun in the subject, but state the subject. Later the predicate, and then later support. The second sentence would be an evidence, so some sort of citation that supports the main idea. So you have your main idea, you have evidence sentences, and then you have analyze sentences. The A in the acronym applies or allows you to comment on the evidence, that is, analyze it, compare and contrast to some other evidence or some other position, discuss the relationship to that evidence, to the main idea, make it very clear to the reader what's the relationship between the evidence and the main idea. To you, it's clear as the writer. You're writing it and it makes sense to you. But you have to make it very clear and articulate and comment on that evidence to draw the connection between the fact, the example that you're using with the main idea or the topic sentence. That is the analyze. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have the main idea sentences, one sentence in this case, the very first sentence of each body paragraph, the evidence, analyze sentence, and then the very last sentence of each body paragraph is the linking sentence. That is a transition between the idea from that paragraph to the next one, so that each paragraph flows. And that's why I'm suggesting to make sure that you write out first, for example, those topic sentences, so you know very clearly what is the order in which you're presenting your ideas. Now, the sentences, those are the 4 types of sentences that you're going to have, but you could have I would suggest having at least 5 to 8 more sentences per paragraph. So you know the first sentence is always going to be the topic sentence, and you know the last sentence is always going to be the linking sentence. I would suggest the second sentence of every body paragraph to be evidence. Because what happens, sometimes students write like 2 sentences that are kind of like the topic sentence. And I think we can be more direct and just say more concise by just one sentence as the topic sentence. The second sentence, get right to it. For example, and you state an example or a statistic or a fact based on a citation. Then the third sentence, you have a couple possibilities. You could add a third sentence or another evidence. Another example is this, right? And you don't always have to use a sentence connector, for example, but that's the idea. You could add another evidence, and then followed by an analyze, where you talk about those 2 sentences, those 2 evidence. Okay, that's one way. Another way is evidence, analyze, evidence, analyze. So you present something, comment on it. You present or include a citation, comment on those 2 or that second example. Right? So you have some options. It just depends on how you want to form your thoughts on each paragraph, and then complete your paragraph with a linking sentence. So that acronym helps me. Every time I write a paragraph, I'm always thinking in terms of those 4 types of sentences and asking myself, how am I presenting those 4 sentences in a logical fashion? Right? Because each paragraph has to be coherent as well. So you have each paragraph is like a mini essay. You have an introduction or the topic sentence, and you have kind of a conclusion or a transition or a linking sentence at the end. And you have details, and those details have to support the topic sentence. So
the evidence and the analysis, like body paragraph of the essay.
Right. And so in each paragraph, think of each paragraph as, how do I want to organize my thoughts? Chronologically? Do I want to do it general to the specific to the general, abstract to the concrete? Just like I mentioned before with regard to the whole thesis, you have to think about how coherent each paragraph is the same way. And you can follow those few patterns. There's only a few. Thinking about how you can organize information, it's either chronological, historical by date, abstract to concrete, general to specific. That's it. That's and it could change. It doesn't have to be the same way for each paragraph. It depends on what you're talking about. But there should follow one of those 5 or 6 patterns. Okay.
Yeah, I want to do it from general to specific.
Well, ask yourself each paragraph how you want to do it, because it depends on what you're talking about. Yeah, and it could change. One paragraph could be based on chronologically, another could be based on process, another could be, first this happens, then you do this is the process. Another paragraph could be based on, general to the specific, whatever.
Does the introduction come after?
I would do the introduction towards the end when you finish, pretty much, yeah. But the introduction is going to be very much like the introduction that we did in applied linguistics, starting off with the hook. We have 3 different types of hooks that we can do.
Yeah.
Background information to the problem in this case, and then the thesis statement. But you can do that, later. In fact, if you don't even finish it for the 28th, what I'm looking for the 28th specifically is I'm looking for the thesis statement, the research questions and everything in between.
Okay.
The literature review. I'm not even really looking at if you have a good conclusion at this point at the end. But I do want to see your research questions, which all of you have done. And we'll deal with the introduction later. The main thing is to get this coherent, understandable, and that it is aligned with what you are going to start doing. Basically in 2 weeks, right? Or 1 week and a few days.
Yeah. Can I start the first paragraph using reading strategies in general? I mean, for example,
your literature review?
Yeah.
I would suggest organizing your literature
in order to
review
get from general to specific.
Well, how much information are you going to use? I would focus on these three: metacognitive, monitoring, and think aloud, and present reading strategies within each. Right. So, for example, remember that each of these three sections has to follow some sort of pattern. So maybe the pattern is this. Talk about the strategy, and then the reading comprehension relationship, the link to reading comprehension. So the strategy, and then reading comprehension. Monitoring strategy, reading comprehension. Think aloud strategy, reading comprehension. See that? So you're talking about the strategy, reading comprehension. Strategy, reading comprehension. Strategy, reading comprehension. Right? That's one way. I mean, if you don't like that, find another way to do it. But this isn't the point. That it follows some sort of pattern. Right? And it's going to depend on how much information you have to discuss this, because obviously you would, in that case, you would have to discuss it for each one. And you probably need to. If you're talking about reading comprehension, it needs to apply to those three strategies in some way. There should be some sort of relationship.
Okay.
See? Because another way you could do it is talk about the reading comprehension first and then the strategies. But personally, I think it would be better to integrate reading strategy in each of those three strategies. For me, I think that makes more sense, because you're kind of, talking about it within each strategy instead of kind of as a separate thing, because you're going to have to talk about it somehow, and you don't want to. If you separate it into sections, it's going to be harder, I think, to really talk about the relationship, to connect them. And you really want to connect everything. You want to connect reading comprehension with each of those three strategies, and you want to connect each strategy to each other.
Okay. Do I have to change my topic's name, right? Because no.
What do you mean, topic? The title, or what?
The title. Yeah.
Don't worry about the title.
No?
We'll worry about the title later.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll do the title at the very end. That's the least of our.
Yeah.
For me, right now, for us, critical, the thesis statement, absolutely necessary, very important, and the research questions. That's like the heart and soul of everything, of the whole thesis. And just remember that the thesis statement answers, or should answer, the research questions. Just like later when you do your research, you're going to set out to answer your research questions. Okay. But just from the theory, the thesis statement answers the research questions.
Okay.
All right? Any other questions? No. Concerns? No. Don't forget your reflection for Sunday. You can do that anytime from Monday through Sunday. But do it before Sunday. And just let me know if you want me to look at anything, or if you want to discuss something before our tutoring session, since it's not until next Friday. Just let me know.
If I have an important doubt, can I talk before this?
Yes. Okay, Diego. Have a good week. Have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
You too.
All right.